everybody. We're going to keep reading more of our new book, which is Civil War on Sunday. We're going to read chapter 2. Yesterday we started our new book. We learned a little bit about the Magic Treehouse series in general, and we found out that the adventure that Jack and Annie are going to be going on this time is they're going back to the Civil War. And they're looking for their mission that Morgan Le Fay has given them is they must find 4 special kinds of writing. Something to follow, something to send, something to learn, something to lend. So first they're looking for something to follow. And that's where we are now. Chapter 2 is called Cruel War. We're going to learn what that means. Cruel War. Glaring sunlight filled the treehouse. "It's really hot here," said Jack. "Especially in these clothes," said Annie. Their clothes had magically been changed. Annie wore a long dress. Jack wore scratchy pants and a long-sleeve shirt. His backpack was now a leather knapsack. So here's their new outfit. This is not what they were wearing when they went into the treehouse. And this reminds us a little bit of the clothes when we went to History Days, and they were showing us the clothes that they used to wear and how they were hot and itchy. "Where are we?" asked Annie. They looked out the window together. The treehouse had landed in a tree at the edge of a field, the same field on the cover of the book. So all they had to do was point to the cover of the book, and magically they were there. "It looks so peaceful," said Jack. "Where's the Civil War?" "There," whispered Annie with a shiver. She pointed to the woods beyond the field. Jack saw a soldier riding a horse out of the woods. The horse was covered in mud. The soldier's blue uniform was torn. His arm was bloody. Another man rode into the field. His blue uniform was in rags too. His head was bandaged. "Oh man," whispered Jack. "Who are they?" He opened the Civil War book and found a painting of some soldiers in blue. He read to Annie. 1861 to 1865. The Civil War is also called the War Between the States because it was fought between the southern and the northern states of the United States. Southerners wore gray uniforms and were called Confederate soldiers. Northerners wore blue uniforms and were called Union soldiers. So if Northerners wore blue uniforms and were Union soldiers, and Southerners wore gray uniforms and were Confederate soldiers, let's see who we're looking at here. It says that these 2 soldiers wore blue. So who were they? Which side were they fighting for? "So they're Union soldiers," said Jack. He pulled out the notebook and wrote, "Civil War, 1861 to 1865. Blue equals North equals Union. Gray equals South equals Confederate." Jack looked at his book again. He read aloud, "The Civil War was a cruel and bloody war. More people died in this war than in all of America's other wars put together." So the only war that we've talked about so far is the Revolutionary War. But they're saying up until now, all the wars put together, this was the cruelest, bloodiest, deadliest war. One out of every 5 young men in the nation died or was wounded. So out of every 5, one out of every 5 was either killed or wounded. "That's so sad," said Annie. Jack wrote in his notebook, "Cruel War." "Wow, they keep coming," Annie said. Jack looked up. More Union soldiers were coming through the field. These didn't have any horses. They all look sad and weary. What does weary mean? If they're sad and they're weary. You can think about how you would feel if you were a soldier and you'd been fighting and you were wounded. So weary just means like they're just tired. They're exhausted. They're kind of just over it and can't do any more. Some of them limped. Some of them helped others along. One man stumbled and fell. "I have to help," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack. So you can see the part here, this is the part that Jack wrote in his book. So he wrote the dates of the Civil War, and he's making a connection here that if they're in blue, they're from the North and they're Union, and if they're in gray, they're from the South and Confederate. So he's just making little notes here. She started down the rope ladder. "You can't help," said Jack. "A kid can't help." But Annie kept going. "Don't forget, we have to find some special writing for Morgan," Jack called in a loud whisper. "Something to follow." He packed the Civil War book and his notebook in his knapsack. Then he started down the ladder. When he stepped onto the ground, Jack saw Annie in the distance. She was holding her hand out to the fallen soldier. She helped him to his feet. The soldier slowly started walking again. Annie walked beside him. "Oh, brother," said Jack, and he hurried to catch up with Annie. So here she is on the battlefield helping a soldier. You see her helping him up? And here comes Jack running down here. The sun was scorching hot as Jack ran through the dry field. He was sweaty in his scratchy clothes. He caught up with Annie. Together they walked silently with the soldiers. At the end of the field was a steep hill. Everyone stopped and gazed at the sight below them. Rows and rows of white tents. "Thank goodness," said the soldier beside Jack. "We're saved." So here's a picture of the field that's got the rows and rows of white tents. This is an illustration in the book. And now I'm going to show you, this is a real photograph from the Civil War. This is in the book, Great Photographers of the Civil War. And this book was in our classroom. But this is an actual photograph of one of the camps. So you see, this is just like in the book, the field with rows and rows of white tents. So this is an actual picture from the Civil War. Okay, so that is the end of this chapter, where the soldier says, "Thank goodness we're saved." So you think, what do you think that means, we're saved? You guys have as an assignment, you have the Civil War, well, the second graders have a Civil War timeline. So here they're talking about the dates of the beginning and end. You guys have a Civil War timeline that you're going to do. And everybody, you've got pictures and words in your packet that you're going to start doing what Jack was doing here, where he was like trying to make these connections, like what goes on one side, what goes on the north side, and what goes on the south side. So he's putting gray and Confederate on the south side. He's putting blue and Union on the north side. You guys are going to do that too. You're going to have pictures and words that you're going to start working on your poster. Okay? Very good. And tomorrow we will pick up there, chapter 3.